Hey everyone, welcome to the Investor.Bet NRL Grand Final betting preview for the matchup between the Melbourne Storm and Penrith Panthers. I'm going to go through a complete preview of the game, who I think is going to win and why, and how I think this game is going to be played out, so that when you make your bets on this game, you have the information you need to make really smart betting decisions. The way we do this and the way we've done it all season long is using the Bet Finder tools. So the matchup tab, which you can see here, where we look the team and their overall statistics, both in attack and then also defense, and then break it down further with the betting trends, their recent matchups, and then because of the grand final, there's a number of other things I'm going to go through additionally on top of this. And then coming tomorrow is going to be the try scorer predictions video, where I'm going to go through two players that I'm backing to score a try in the NRL Grand Final. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you subscribe, you have notifications on so you don't miss that video when it is posted. So looking at this matchup, firstly, this game between the Storm, Panthers, Melbourne Storm are currently small favorites. They're $1.90 to $1.94. Early in the week, when this game first went up on Saturday night last week, it was $1.90 either side. Then Storm came into $1.83. Then when Nelson Asofa-Solomona was ruled out by the judiciary, then the odds even back up again. So currently, Melbourne are very, very small favorites. The overall history between the two sides, they played 46 times. Storm have won 31. Penrith have won 15 times. You look at the overall trends. They've met twice this season. So their latest matchup was round 24 this season in Penrith, and Melbourne won that game 24-22. The Panthers were 5.5-point favorites for that game. So $1.54 to $2.45, and that wasn't that long ago, only in round 24. And then their other game this season was in round 1, and Melbourne were underdogs for that game as well, but won 8 points to 0. First thing I want to do is look deeper at what happened in those two matchups. So firstly, look at the games. Since Melbourne have won both the games this season, this will be their third meeting. It's really important to dive in and see what happened in those games. So firstly, the most recent game in round 24, where the Storm won 24 points to 22. This game, for the Panthers, Taruva was out, and for the Melbourne Storm, Xavier Coates was out. Melbourne led at halftime 16 points to 12. They scored two early tries to Anderson and Katoa. So after 15 minutes in, they were already up 10-0. A late try just before halftime. Penrith did even it back up, scoring a couple of tries of their own. Then when we look through what happened in the second half, Dylan Edwards went in shortly after halftime, followed by Casey McLean. So at that stage, Penrith had a 22 points to 16 lead. Then Tyron Wishart went over with 20 to go, was converted, and then Nick Meaney got a penalty goal with 8 minutes left to push the Melbourne Storm in front. Other thing I want to highlight, Asofa-Solomona, who won't be playing in this game, was sin bin at the 54th minute mark, which Casey McLean's try was scored during that period, and the Storm were able to go over. This game totaled 46 points. If we look at the total line, it was 43.5. So it did go over the number. Penrith leading, and then Storm running over the top of them with that late penalty goal. Looking through the statistics, both teams had a fairly even possession, both completed at over 80%, which is what you're really going to expect in this game. I think it's going to play out very, very similar. Line breaks, meters gained, tackle breaks, all fairly similar. The Penrith Panthers missing 35 tackles is fairly high, especially for them, and they made 11 errors in this game. Penrith won the penalty count 8-6, with the Storm conceding the 8 penalties, and Storm won the set restart count 3-1. The previous matchup, we'll also take a look at what happened in that game. So back in round 1, with the Storm shutting out the Panthers 8 points to 0. For this game, Cameron Monster didn't play for Melbourne, neither did Asofa-Solomona, and Mitch Kenny was the main out for the Penrith Panthers. This game, only 8 points scored, the only try by Remus Smith shortly after halftime, and an early penalty goal from Nick Meaney, with the Storm going up 2-0 at halftime. The team statistics for this game, Melbourne Storm led the possession 53%, so a slight edge in their favor. Both sides completed poorly, 68% to 74%. The errors down here, 16 errors to 12, so a huge error count there for Melbourne, but they're still able to win this game and shut out Penrith which I definitely can't see them making that number of mistakes in the grand final. The past 2 weeks leading in, or their past 2 games through finals, they've completed at 95% and 85%. Pretty sure it was last week when they beat the Sydney Roosters. Storm won the penalty count here, 9-6. Then the Panthers won the set restarts, 4-1. Tackle efficiency, fairly even between both sides, same as missed tackles. This is a key number here for the Storm. Kick defusal percentage, 86%. That'll be very, very important against Nathan Cleary's kicking game, which turned the game in last year's grand final against the Broncos, and also made a big difference in the game last week against the Cronulla Sharks. So interesting to see both games. Storm were fairly dominant in both of them and were underdogs. So I feel like that is the main reason for the odds evening up compared to their previous meetings. Leading into this game, the Storm have won 3 straight. Big win over the Broncos in the final round of the season. You can ignore this game where they rested a number of players when going up to Townsville. Very simple win against the Sharks, 37-10, then 48-18 against the Roosters. Interestingly, how this final series has played out. Both these sides have played the same teams, just in the opposite order to get to the grand final. So you can get a good line on them. And I feel like, in my opinion, watching the games, that Melbourne have been the more dominant side against both of those teams, both the Sharks and the Roosters, compared to how Penrith were against them. Penrith started really, really well against the Roosters and the game was over. Last week against the Sharks, up to about the 60th minute, it was like you're kind of expecting Penrith to, go on and win, but it didn't look, it wasn't over. And the fact they're letting the Sharks kind of hang around in that game before scoring a couple of late tries to blow out the margin is a slight concern if they play that similar way against Melbourne, who aren't going to give them that chance to just hang around with a small lead for that long period of time. Now, before we look at the specific trends between these two sides, I went back and looked at the past 10 grand finals and what the odds were, who's been winning, who's been covering, and any trends that have come out of those. So first of all, 3 of the past 4 grand finals have gone over the total points line. That's the closing line. So history of higher scoring games. And then if you go back beyond that, 5 of the 6 games prior went under. So recent history has been towards the overs, but overall history over the past 10 years is slightly towards the unders. The favorite has won 6 of the past 7 grand finals. So whoever started as the betting favorite has gone on to win. The only time the favorite didn't win was when the Roosters beat the Melbourne Storm back in 2018. Other couple of things. This is the closest grand final as it currently stands odds-wise since the Brisbane Broncos North Queensland grand final back in 2015. So almost 10 years, and this is the closest the odds have been. A lot of those favorites have been winning, have been between the $1.30 to $1.60. Slightly, I think there was 1 or 2 games that are out to $1.70, but majority of them kind of in that range. Also, so far this final series in 2024, all the favorites have won. So every single game, the favorite has gone and won. The only one that was fairly close was the Bulldogs Manly Seagulls game, where Bulldogs were early favorites and then Seagulls came into favorites late, and then went on to win that game and eliminate the Bulldogs. So all favorites have won so far. At this stage, it's looking like most likely the Storm are going to start favorites, but with these current prices, it really could go either way. So it'll be interesting by the time, by Sunday, 6:30, when we get to kick off, who is favorite. I am expecting Storm to be, though. Now, between these two sides, the underdog has won and covered 4 of the past 6. So the underdog has performed really well in recent games. Interestingly, the Melbourne Storm have been underdog in the past 4 between these sides head-to-head. They've won the last 2 back in 2023. Penrith won all 3 of those games. Penrith also eliminated the Melbourne Storm in the prelim finals last year as big favorites in that game. You can see $1.19 on the money line. 38-4 was the final score. So Melbourne will definitely be keen and have that result in the back of their head. 5 of the past 7 between these two sides have been decided by 16 points or more. So that's something that, considering what the odds are for this game and, just what we've known about these sides over the past 5 years particularly, but you could even go 6, 7, 8 years. you would expect the majority of their games to be close. However, that hasn't been the case. With 5 of the past 7 being decided by big margins. The past 2, though, were the ones that were decided by less than that. One thing I look at is the margins for every side throughout the year. And firstly, the win by 1 to 12 or 13 plus margins. Storm, the games they've won 20 games, 21 games this season, 12 of them by 1 to 12, 9 by 13 plus, and their losses, all the games that they've lost have been by the 1 to 12 margin. And then Penrith, their wins, they've won 19 games, 11 have been by 1 to 12, 8 by 13 plus, and their losses of 7 of those, 6 of the 7 were by 1 to 12, and then 1 loss by 13 plus points. We can break that down even further by the 6-point margins. Interestingly, Storm, majority of the games they've won have been by the 1 to 6 points, and then 5 games by 7 to 12, and then 6 games by 19 plus, and their losses, 3 of those 5 losses were by 1 to 6. And then the Panthers, majority of their wins were by 19 plus points, and with the other vast majority being by the 1 to 12, with 11 games coming up in that category. And then just the 1 win by the 13 to 18 margin. And I did post a video on this topic back right at the beginning of the season. I'll link it in the description if you want to go and watch it, talking about how you can get the most value out of margin bets on the NRL. Because what you will notice here is the 1 to 12 winning margins, majority of those games were won by 1 to 6 points. And then the majority of games by 13 plus were actually by 19 plus. You can see so far overall this season, it's been 99 games that have been won by 13 plus points, and 67 of those were by 19 plus, which is obviously much better odds than taking just the 13 plus. So that's definitely something you can keep in mind. And I spoke about this over previous seasons, and interestingly, it's played out once again this year. So definitely watch that video if you haven't seen it. And then for the losses for Penrith, it was fairly 50-50 between the 1 to 6 and 7 to 12. And the one game they lost by 13 plus was in that 13 to 18 point margin range. With Penrith being currently underdogs for this game, I had a look. So far this season, they've been an underdog twice and won both of those games outright. The 2 times they were an underdog, first was in round 4 against Sydney Roosters, where they won 22 to 16. And then they're also an underdog in round 12 against the Cronulla Sharks and won that game 42 points to 0. Storm this season, as a favorite, have won 17 of 20 games where they've been the listed favorite lot, and obviously lost 3 of them. And if the market does switch around this season, Storm are 4-2 as an underdog, and the Panthers are 17-7 as a favorite. Have dropped 7 games this year when starting as a favorite. The other main thing to take a look at in terms of the matchup here is the team's record at Accor Stadium. Storm have won 6 of their past 8 there. They've only played there once this year, which was round 23. They beat the Rabbitohs 28 points to 16. And then the Panthers played there last week against the Sharks. They've now won 12 of their past 14 at the venue. So both sides have very, very good records at this stadium. And it's obviously been well talked about that, this is the Panthers' 5th straight grand final. They're going for 4 in a row. They've won the past 3. But the time that they did lose was in 2020, and that was against the Melbourne Storm. This is that game here. Storm running out winners 26 points to 20. This was in the shortened season in 2020, and the Panthers won 18 of 20 regular season games that year, finished on top of the ladder with the Melbourne Storm in second. This year around, that ladder finished the opposite way. For this game, if we have a look what happened, Melbourne Storm got out to a quick lead, very early, leading 22 points to 0. And pretty much kind of shut up shop from that point forward, only scoring the 1 try, which was early in the second half, to go up 26 points to 0. And from that point forward, it was a long way back for the Panthers. They scored a try just after the 50th minute, and to give themselves some sort of hope. And then Crichton went over on the 68th minute. These last 2 tries were when the Storm were down. Jerome Hughes sin bin at the 70th minute, and Brandon Smith sin bin at the 79th minute when Cleary went over to score. So this scoreline is a lot closer than the game kind of indicated that it was. Melbourne were $1.70 favorites for this game, and the total was 34.5. So Melbourne won and covered, and it went over the total fairly comfortably. If the Panthers didn't get those late few tries, then it obviously would have gone under that very, very low number. But we obviously got a higher total for this game. So looking at the matchup, statistically wise, how these teams have performed this year, Melbourne, the number 2 attacking side, averaging 28.8 points a game. And then the Panthers ranked 6th in attack in points for at 24.2. The key metrics that I really like to break down here is meters per point, which the Storm dominate this category at 58.8, where the Panthers sit at 76, which is 10th best in the league. And also Storm at number 1 meters per play and number 1 in line breaks. So that's going to be the key for this game is, can the Storm still generate the meters down the field and the number of line breaks against the Panthers, who concede the second least number of line breaks of all sides. But clearly, so far this year, Melbourne have been the better attacking side. Just need to improve their completion rate and make less errors, which we've seen them do in both finals games so far. It's clearly been a focus for them. Defensively, which I've spoken about before, it does win these key matches. So this is where Penrith have their edge in defense. They only conceded 1 try last week against the Sharks, which Katoa was only able to just ground the ball right on the corner post. And Penrith, so defensively, have been very, very good, only conceding 16.4, best first half defensive side in terms of points conceded. Give up the least number of run meters to the opponent and second least number of opponent post-contact meters. And without a Sofa Solomona in the side, this is going to be very, very crucial to this matchup. Field position-wise, don't see like Melbourne Storm winning this game in a blowout. Kind of what happened in the AFL Grand Final. I think it is going to be a fairly close game between these two sides. And the forward battle is going to be very, very key with Melbourne generating that field position. And they're going to have to rely on their centers and wingers to do a fair bit of work, which obviously they are capable of when you look at that Storm backline. The other main thing that I did notice when going through this is Storm missed the least number of tackles. So that's definitely in their favor. If they can force those misses and tackle breaks against the Panthers, then that's going to hold them in very, very good stead. Other thing is Penrith concede the second most penalties per game in the league, but they also get the second most. So that does even it out slightly. But if they're constantly giving away penalties to and being undisciplined against the Storm will make them pay. Storm don't generate that many penalties themselves, but if obviously teams giving them away, then it's going to be in their favor. But I don't expect it to be a highly refereed game with lots of penalties and lots of big calls that create the controversy. We spoke about how the Storm make a high number of errors. The Panthers don't force that many errors. So it's going to be up to the Melbourne players just to practice that ball control to make sure they don't make the mistakes. As it currently stands, based off looking through all of this information, I do believe the Storm should be small favorites. 1.5 to -2 was my projected line. So I was expecting the Storm to be at around the $1.70, $1.75 mark. I think they can cover the loss of Sofa Solomona, similar to they had to do in round 1 with no Munster or Sofa Solomona. And I think they can still cover that even in the grand final here. Just overall this season, Storm consistently, and their attacks gotten better as the season's gone on. And if they bring that same attacking flair to this game, it's going to be very, very difficult for Penrith to find enough points against them. I feel like Penrith's attack's just been lacking. It hasn't been as good. I spoke about in, I think, the video last week, Penrith's numbers compared to previous seasons just aren't quite as good as they were. Like every single category, they're performing poorer in than previous seasons. And then Melbourne have improved dramatically going into this season. So I'm definitely leaning towards them winning this game, and I'd be happy backing them on the money line. I wouldn't want to be laying like 2.5, 3.5 points. So the line will probably stay in this range so we can comfortably take them on the money line. That's the most likely way I'm looking at playing this game. The other potential bet, I feel like you can definitely play the try bets in this game. Either side to win by 1 to 10, 1 to 12. Don't think it's going to be a blowout either way. From a total perspective, at 40.5, I can see the Melbourne Storm scoring over 20 points. That's for sure. Penrith, I feel like, are going to be in that 14 to kind of 18 point range. If they start really well, then they could generate over 20 plus and then make it a really, really close game. But we saw in last year's grand final against the Broncos, it took a long time for the Panthers to get their attack rolling, and their numbers last year were a lot better. So they're going to have to improve dramatically to beat the Storm in this game. Both sides very familiar with this situation. So I don't think there's going to be any team that's going to just completely go off the ball. That's why I feel like that either side is a solid potential bet. And if I had to pick a side on the total, I'd lean towards the over. I'd prefer playing it down slightly to like a 38.5, 37.5 to just get a little bit of a better number. I feel like 40.5 is right on the threshold. If this was a regular season game, like we saw in round 24 at 43.5, then I'd definitely be leaning towards the over. But in this occasion, I feel like it's just going to be a tighter, more defensive game. Still would lean towards the over. So that's how I'm approaching betting on the NRL Grand Final. Hopefully this video kind of threw a lot of different statistics and stuff at you just to make sure you have a lot of the information that you're not going to see if you're just, watching the sports shows on TV and stuff that don't break it down with the detail of previous matchups and how teams are performing. So that's what I aim to provide through these videos to help you make sure that you're making money from your bets on the NRL. It's been a really, really good season, both profit-wise, and I really enjoyed putting these videos together. So hopefully they've made a difference for you throughout the season, especially if you've been following right from the beginning of the year. But if you joined part of the way through, which I know a lot of you guys have, I really appreciate you following along on the channel. So good luck with your bets on the NRL Grand Final. Game is on Sunday night, so still plenty of time leading up to the game. If you have any questions about it, feel free to put them in the comments. We'll send through a message on the Instagram. I'm happy to chat with you about the game further. Then as we wrap up the NRL season, the NFL, American football season, is in full swing now. 4 weeks completed. We're going into week 5 this weekend. If you want to watch previews about the NFL games because you're interested in betting on that and you want to approach it from the same perspective you have been with the NRL this season, check out the Investor.Bet USA sports channel. That's where I post previews for the US sports. We've got NBA starting in a few weeks, NHL starting, and Major League Baseball playoffs. And of course, all the soccer leagues are about 2 months in now to all their seasons. So there's lots of different sports to be betting on. If you want my daily plays, see everything I'm betting, you can get those as part of the Bet Finders, which you can access through the description. And also this time of year, we have the horse racing. This week, we're betting Friday night, Saturday, and with the public holiday following the grand final, we're also betting on the racing on Monday. So a busy weekend, lots of things to bet on. The key is always following proper bankroll management and never outlaying more on a single play than your bankroll allows you to do. So for me personally, my max bet ever is 3 units. But in recent times, working with the bigger bankroll, I've brought that down to 2 units. But depending where your bankroll's at, you can definitely go up to the 3 unit on a single game or on a single race. But I'd recommend you don't do more than that. Even like on the NRL Grand Final, you don't want to be outlaying too much because it's the Grand Final and there's only 1 game on, there's still other betting opportunities. You don't want to burn your whole season that you've worked so hard to create the result all onto 1 game. And, if we get key sin bins or, a controversial decision or, key injury early on in the game, all those things can happen, which can destroy your bet. So I don't want that to happen. And I want you guys to keep on building so that you can consistently make profits every month and not just go for those big wins here and there. That's what I'm all about with the Investor.Bet channel. That's why, if you ever wondered why it's called Investor.Bet, it's because it's approaching betting as if you're an investor and making smart betting decisions with the funds that you choose to invest and doing that research like an investor would. Like, if you read any investor books from like your Warren Buffetts, Charlie Mungers, those kind of people, Benjamin Graham, they'll always talk about the research and the reading that you do about something before investing your money in it. It's not just about picking something and then hoping for the best and that it all works out. It's about making calculated decisions just like an investor would. And so approaching betting that same way will get you the long-term results that you want. So that's why I created this channel. Hopefully these videos help. Throughout the off season, I'm going to be recapping different facets when I go through and do a full review of this year. So stay tuned for those videos. And also leading up to next season, where we're going to be posting previews leading up to help you make sure that next year, 2025, is really profitable. And if you're not already, get on the wait list for the NRL betting guide for next season. About a month out, I'll release that. So anyone who's on the wait list, you'll get that for free, sent to you as one of the first people to get it. And that'll have the breakdown of every single team for next year's season and the outlook and how you can approach betting on them to make profits. So definitely join the wait list to that. All the links to everything I'll just put in the description so you can go through and get what you need. But thanks guys for watching. Really appreciate it. Good luck on the game. Hopefully you make profits, and most of all, hopefully it's a great game. Talk to you soon.